Hello and welcome back. I'm David Bianco. I don't know about you, but lately talking about MOFI has been a bit of a drag. So I thought I'd pull out something from the past, from Mobile Fidelity Sound Labs, an original master recording, and the first box set they ever did, called The Beatles, the collection. We're going to talk about that next on The Sound of Safe and Sound, Texas. Welcome back and thanks for watching. It's kind of a special day because I don't pull this box out very often, to tell you the truth. I leave it stored in a very secure place, and I occasionally pull out an album once in a while. I have two of these actually. I have this one that I opened, and I bought a second one at the same time that is still sealed. Another friend of mine bought one sealed back then. We had a lot of disposable money at that time. We weren't married. And he bought one. And he called me about a year and a half ago. And he says, hey, I was up in my attic and I found this box. And I realized it was Mobile Fidelity something. And I said, really? I said, did you never open that Beatles box? He goes, no. I said, that's it. I said, you might want to open it up and check it out, because if you had in the attic all these years, I'm not sure, it might be warped or whatever, maybe not direct sunlight. But anyway, he said, well, how much is this thing worth? I said, well, in a box like that, if it's in good condition, you haven't played it, a few $1,000s. He's like, wow, we paid $350 back in the day for these. So we did have a lot of disposable income back in 1982. That was a lot of money. MOFI came out with, I should call them MFSL, because they were not MOFI back then. They were MFSL. They were, they made 5,000 of these and then made 20,000 more. And so we're going to go through that. But I did find something interesting. I had pulled some articles back then that came out at the time when this was released, because this was a big deal. Beatles coming out on audiophile label. So Audiophile Recordings was a magazine, and the actual article was called All Together Now, and it was a review, and they gave it an A+ in sound and an A+ in performance. And it says the Mobile Fidelity renderings allow us to hear what we perhaps weren't intended to hear originally. The Beatles' music reproduced accurately. Well, the technology back when these came out, wasn't as good, and the capability to make a high-end pressing of vinyl wasn't either. But it's not that these sets don't have issues, and we'll talk about some of those. Also had a New York Times article. I thought this was really interesting when I read this a few minutes ago. It said it might be asked why one should spend a huge amount of money for an album of analog records when the digital era is almost upon us. Soon enough, someone will issue a complete Beatles collection that has been digitally mixed and mastered and appears on digital discs that, in theory, never wear out. In a sense, audiophile pressings and prestige boxes like this are the last Baroque extravaganzas of a dying analog era. But one might argue that these songs were recorded with analog technology and are best heard with that technology at its most advanced. So, there you go. That's a perspective. I think it's a great perspective, as a matter of fact. One of the things about this set that's a little bit unique is that the albums that are in it do not have the original covers. Instead, they are a photo of the master tape that was used from EMI to cut the record. Now, I saw a video recently, it may not be a new one, it may be an older one, but I heard Michael Fremer make a comment that, well, all of these photos of these tapes are the same on all the albums. Well, that's not true, at least not on the one I have. Now, I have number 16,657. So maybe on the early pressings, which I'm sure Michael was given as part of being a journalist to review, they may have had the same picture on all of them. So I don't want to cast any aspersions that maybe he is saying something inaccurate. I don't know. But I will tell you that on the set that I have, the 20,000 that were pressed after the original 5,000, This one has the Please Please Me tape on it. And the next one has Meet the Beatles. So they are different photos. And they're interesting. To me, it's interesting to read this, to see when all it was checked out and the tape was taken out and all those kind of things. It's very interesting. So how do you get the covers? Well, they're in this little booklet, which has that serial number on it. It has this kind of intro page. It then gives you some authentication page with the serial number. It gives you some technology notes, very detailed notes about how the records were made. Hint, hint. And then, of course, after that, it gets into the actual, it's 2 pages of detail, by the way. Then it gets into the actual album covers, right? There's Please Please Me and the back jacket for Please Please Me, and then with the Beatles and so on and so forth. So they're very, very high-res photos for the day and all, so that's to be complimented. So these are actually, although this was released in the U.S., obviously, from MFSL, this is the EMI versions of their albums, not the Capitol. The Capitals were generally crap in the early days, and frankly, you know, they mixed the songs different, both in the way they sounded and the which songs were on which albums, different album names, the whole 9 yards. So this emulates the albums that came out within the UK releases, from Please Please Me all the way to Let It Be. Okay, but as they note in these articles, there are some gaps here when you look at their catalog and you say, gee, because they were limiting to this in the British albums, some songs did not appear, like Hey Jude, for example, because that was not released in the UK on one of their regular albums. Another review said the same things, because thus we couldn't find things that were on US albums. On the US album, Something New, Yesterday and Today, and the Beatles' second album, songs were covered like She Loves You, Day Tripper, We Can Work It Out, and they are not on this 14-disc set. So other sets have that when they bring in like rarities or past masters, and there are others that I'll show you here in a second that I want to speak of. But this basically is, in fact, the way it was released in the UK. And so, how is this set? Well, all I can tell you is at the time that I got this set, the only thing I could compare this to was the Capitol recordings, the albums from Capitol. And they weren't great. They were poor. They were like C and D quality to me, at least the sound. A lot of compression, cut kind of hot for radio, and I didn't enjoy those tremendously in terms of sound, but they were kind of like what was, I'll say, state of the art at its time. And when I put one of these on, it was like a whole new experience, a whole new thing. And so to me, they sounded fabulous. So I didn't have the comparative capability at the time to go compare it to an original UK press or anything like this, when this came out. So the basis for the way I saw this and the way it sounded was, I was going from, a Ford Fiesta to a Mercedes. And so, it really sounded great to me. I mean, they even gave you a thing called a geodisc, which was developed by MFSL for tracking, aligning your cartridge, for the alignment on your cartridge so it tracked properly. Okay, this is you put it on your platter and you align it up based on the instructions that you're given. So that was kind of cool because they didn't want you to rip up your records. I like that. That's a nice little caveat there. So $350. This is what you got. A lot of money back then. Okay? A lot of money back then. 14 LPs divided out. That's $25 an LP approximately. A lot of money in the day. But I think these really do sound great. The problem is when you go on a secondhand market, they're really expensive. They're a good one. A good set's going to be well over $1,000 into the $2,000 range. And if you're going to get a mint one or sealed, you're going to be $2,000 to $3,000 at least. So the question is it worth that? Well, there are other versions of these kind of albums out there that subsequently I have learned about. And so the MOFI is really good, but again, to buy it today, there are other options that are more satisfying in terms of the price. So above and beyond price, of course, there's always the sound. And so it wasn't until later that I was exposed to a box set that came out of the UK. It was the blue box set called the Beatles Collection. And so in here are similarly the UK releases, but these are the UK presses. And these actually come in the actual jacket of the album as you would expect it to be. So you will get a standard jacket like this, Please Please Me of the Beatles. And these are stereo, by the way, and they sound great. They're on Parlophone, and they're fabulous. You do get one additional thing. You get an album called Rarities, and these have some songs on it that aren't on the standard UK releases. Across the Universe, yes it is. This Boy, The Inner Light, I'll Get You, Thank You Girl, I Want to Hold Your Hand in German, You Know My Name, Look Up the Number, She Loves You in German, Rain, She's a Woman, Matchbox, I'll Call Your Name, Bad Boy, Slow Down, I'm Down, and Long Tall Sally. So this set attempts to fill the gaps. Okay. So what about sound? Well, this sounds better, way better than the MOFI in my opinion. These are really the original UK mixes and pressings, and they are put in a box set. So from a perspective of sound, I think this is a much better purchase. Price-wise, it's also better too. You can get these for between $400 and $800, depending on condition. And so I would say look for the blue box, because I think you're going to enjoy what you get with that more than what you might get from the MOFI, especially because the MOFI is really kind of outrageously expensive. One other option I'm going to show you that I have is actually a Japanese set called the Beatles box. And this box opens up this way, and it shows you all of the songs. These songs are not the albums per se. These are albums with the songs put in sequence. So it's not like mapping exactly Please Please Me, Beatles for Sale, A Hard Day's Night. You know, it's not doing that. But it has the best of those on that. And so so there's 8 albums here. Comes with a booklet in Japanese, which is of course of no good to me because I can't read it. And then the albums are, you know, just nothing special in the cover, just some photos, and gives you a little backstory and a track list, of course. And but these do sound very good. They do sound very good. And they also give you, and this is on EMI Odeon, which is officially Japanese label for EMI. They do give you some unique track mixes. In other words, if there are a few tracks that have an additional bar or two of music, or the beginning of All My Lovin' has the symbol at the beginning. So they do have some unique songs on here from the normal album. So if you really wanted to ever just sit down and listen to the best of the Beatles over 8 albums, this is the way to go. And these are, you know, these aren't the most expensive in the world. I've seen them on the open market for under several $100s. So it just depends. And I don't want to speak to what they're going to cost you when you find them. I'm looking here. Discogs, the most expensive one, the top max is $345. So not outrageous. So these are, in fact, a good buy and a good sound. So again, from the MOFI, which is really decent, and it was cutting edge at the time, no pun intended, but the blue box from UK, the Beatles Collection, is really the best value if you want the albums. If you want to just get greatest hits kind of compilations, the best of everything ever, then this is a good buy for several $100s. So that's it for now. I want to thank you very much for joining me, and as always, please subscribe. It really helps me out, and if you would like the video, and you did, I'd appreciate you clicking on like, and comments are always welcome. So for now, it's time to say goodbye, and thank you for joining me on the Sound of Safe and Sound, Texas. Goodbye, everybody.